What is up, dudes? Louie and Eli here, back for we're gonna do kind of a label spotlight slash review video, I guess. Um, yeah. Good morning. Louie says hi. So, anyways, in recent times, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, my good buddy Brian Arkham, longtime commenter on my channel, and now has started his own channel, which is awesome. He's an awesome dude. I have said it before, but I wish I'm not saying I would expect everyone to do this, but as many people that regularly subscribe on my channel, if you want to start your own channel, go for it. I think it'd be a really cool way. I loved getting to know you guys and stuff like that, and it's cool seeing more of you than just in a comment every now and then. It's fucking awesome. But anyways, if you want to do it, just do it. It's a good way to get to know other people. But anyways, Brian sent me he sent me a number of CDs, but 3 of them happen to be from the same record label, which is one that I had not been familiar with, which is Life After Death Records. It's out of somewhere here in the U.S. Sorry, I don't remember what state. It's a big fucking country. Give me a break. But I've been listening to these 3 albums, especially lately, over and over again, repeatedly, getting them in my head. Because I intended to do a review. I didn't intend to do it right away, but, after a week or two, I was like, yes, this is perfect, When I find a new record label that interests me, usually 3 CDs or 3 tapes, 3 records, whatever. 3 releases is a great way. I don't know. It's just a great number for me to get a taste of what that label has to offer. And 3 albums from Life After Death is what he sent me. One of them I was basically a fan of right away. The other 2 were kind of growers, but anyways, here we go. We'll just get started. Oddly enough, and probably not surprising to you, I don't have a lot of info on Life After Death. I could have done a whole, this is the founder's name, this is what state, this is what year they started. I don't have any of that. I know it's a fairly new label. I probably less than 3 years, maybe around 2. I could be wrong about that. Still a small label. They don't have a big roster, but they do have a decent number of releases under their belt, and it's continuously growing. Mostly death metal from what I can see, and what I can hear. All 3 of these are definitely death metal. I'm just gonna start with the album that caught me the most. This is the one that I instantly, it's just one of those things that you hear and you're like, this is my cup of tea. No doubt about it. This is the album I want to hear. This is what I want to hear out of death metal. And that is Intolerance from Spain with Laments from the Dripstone Cave. I think this is a full length. I might have gotten mixed up. It's pretty fucking short. It's got 7 tracks. I'm pretty sure it's a full length. It's a very short album. It's around half an hour, I believe. It's just old school sounding death metal, the way I like it, the way I always want to hear it. Not that I don't want to hear bands mix it up a little bit. It starts with a cool mystical sounding, ambient intro, which sets the pace for the album perfectly. The production is raw and primal, but like everything I've heard from this label, perfectly audible. Whoever's, I'm not a production guy. I'm not an engineer. I don't understand how that shit works. But the production on all these albums is very good, in the way that it needs to be. The music is simple, it's catchy, it's heavy, it's ancient sounding, but it's also kind of, there's some riffs in there that actually kind of caught me off guard as being a little bit unique in the death metal genre. and it was like kind of old crust sounding riffs. I don't know. Did I show the inside, by the way? And you're probably sitting there thinking, like, dude, what do you know about? You don't know anything about crust. You've never talked about it. You're right. I don't know a lot. But lately, I do work with a couple guys who listen to a lot of old punk and hardcore and crust and stuff like that. So they've been kind of playing a lot of that stuff for me, and I've been kind of catching on to some of it. Doom, especially the band Doom. So there are some riffs here, especially in one song, that are very like old crust sounding, and I thought that was very cool, unique. I certainly didn't expect it, and it just works so well. The vocals are great. They kind of remind me of a little bit of Uchino from Coffins from Japan. That kind of like just low, indecipherable, very monotone. But then they'll go into kind of a little bit of like a Martin Van Drunen, higher rasp at times. It works very well. And the music, kind of the same way too. The music almost kind of does remind me of a little bit of Coffins, a little bit of Asphyx. But I'm not trying to say that they just, simply borrowed from any band specifically. Oddly enough, as you might have noticed, one of the band members is wearing an Asphyx shirt in the band photo, so clearly that's, probably an influence, and fair to say. So this is my number one out of the three. This is the one that I will probably listen to over and over again. Highly recommended. I don't know if it's still available from the label. I know that I did take a look, and some of these were already sold out. I don't remember which. A lot of these are only limited to 100 copies anyways. So, I mean, if any of this, catches your interest, it'd be better to, if you can, it'd be better to get it on the quicker side than waiting. I'm going to go, I hate playing favorites, but I'm going to go to my second favorite, and that's going to be Chasm Dweller from Canada with Bacterial Lotus. Both these first two albums came out in 2020, by the way, so last year. Interesting choice of colors. It's kind of obvious what they're going for, and the music does kind of sound like the presentation of the album looks. It is very swampy, sludgy. Metal Archives has them listed as doom death metal. I wouldn't necessarily argue with that. I don't hear a ton of doom in there. I do. Mostly what I hear is death metal with a swampy, sludgy sound. Yeah, there are some doomy passages, but it's most often, I mean, these guys are playing mid-pace or even fast-paced death metal. I don't know about I don't know if they have any other material, but anyway, yeah, I wouldn't honestly. I have a hard time calling this doom death, but I mean. There's definitely some doom in the music, so I mean that's it's not a stretch or anything. They are a young band. They just formed in 2019, and they've been cranking out releases. They have 6 releases already. I think this was their most recent. One of those being a single, so if you want to count that, 6 releases. The first few songs are actually. What will throw you off the most if you're expecting doom death? The first few songs are actually pretty fast, pretty fast-paced guitar riffing, and the riffs are a little bit on the technical side. Still very old school sounding, but they're a little bit complex. They're not just simple primitive riffs. These guys know how to play their instruments, and that's quite obvious. The vocals are awesome. Probably some of my favorites out of all these albums. There's gross sounding, cavernous, of course. That seems to be kind of a theme with this record label, at least out of all these releases. 4 different bands, and all of them very cavernous sounding vocals. But on this in this band, yeah, they're just more gross sounding, and I like that personally. One thing that kind of hits me strange with this album and the next one that I'm going to talk about is like I said, I'm not a production guy. I'm not a mixing and mastering. I don't know anything about engineering, But one thing that throws me off a little bit about some of these albums and some death metal in general, or even black metal, is when you have like a very cavernous sounding vocal, but then the music sounds more upfront and, you know, a little bit more cleanly produced. You're kind of getting a little bit of that with this album. It's not really a complaint, but it's a little bit off-putting when it sounds like the vocals were recorded in a cave, you know, 30 feet behind you, and the guitars are right here up in front. A little bit off-putting, like I said, but it's really, if it's a complaint, it's a minor complaint. Yeah, I mean, I love the sludgy, swampy sounding riffs. Kind of reminds me of Funerus. I don't know if you guys remember Funerus. Death metal out of the U.S. It's Jill McEntee's band, actually John McEntee's wife from Incantation. It just, I get that same vibe with that, you know, the death metal. Same with Funerus. I never really consider them doom death, but it is like a sludgy, swampy sounding guitar-oriented death metal. Kind of get a similar vibe with this, although maybe Chasm Dweller are a little bit more technical. Yeah, anyways, Chasm Dweller are definitely my second favorite band out of the four. And last but not least, we're going to move on to two more bands I'd never heard of. I never heard of any of these bands, which was awesome. We have a split between Fumes and Thorn. Both bands out of the U.S., if I remember correctly. If I keep looking down, I did take some notes. You know, I can't remember all this shit. So I'll start with Fumes. I'm going to go ahead and say Fumes are probably my third favorite band out of these four. Also from Canada, just like Chasm Dweller, which is interesting. I hope I have that right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. Fumes. Let me show you the release a little bit better, by the way. You know, it's a simple presentation as splits usually are, but very nicely done. You know, layout's pretty pleasing. Sorry about the dirty case. The cover art's dark. It's hard to see. Yeah. Anyways, it's cool. Trust me. Go look at it online. So Fumes. What kind of caught me off guard in a good way though, right away, were the riffs. With Fumes again, you're getting that, you know, very cavernous vocals, you know, sort of cavernous death metal. But when I was listening to the riffs, I was like, okay, you know, I was expecting riffs would be more, you know, more simplistic, more primal, you know, more, I don't want to say old school sounding, but just more simple. And they're actually quite a bit more technical than I expected them to be. Maybe even more so than the Chasm Dweller. But technical in a way that they're not overdone. And it really reminded me of Autopsy in the riffing department. And, you know, if you're an Autopsy... Sorry, I'm back. Anyways, if you're an Autopsy fan, you'll remember, like, Eric Cutler's riffs. Autopsy were a very simplistic kind of primal death metal band. But you had Eric Cutler as a guitar player who's actually a very good guitar player. So he'd you know, some of the riffs that he wrote were a little more advanced and a little more technical than the rest of the band, and it kind of stood out, but it worked. So these Fumes riffs are very much reminding me of Eric Cutler's riffs in Autopsy. Very, you know, kind of angular. There's some guitar solos that are usually pretty short, but they're kind of atonal and also angular in their own way. Just kind of adding a different dimension to the band, to the, you know, the cavernous, you know, primitive death metal sound. You're getting a little bit more in there. And even more so, you know, like I said, with the Chasm Dweller, with the vocals, you know, way back and the guitars up front, almost sounding like two different productions. Kind of off-putting, but like I said, once again, minor complaint. You know, I wouldn't even call it a complaint. Most of the pace with Fumes, at least on these two songs, or, you know, they're kind of mid-pace, kind of lurching, almost doomy death metal as well, but maybe not. Yeah, again, you know, maybe I wouldn't really call it doom death, but there's some doomy death metal, inspirations in there. Everyone loves Autopsy, everyone loves Incantation and Asphyx, and those bands influence a lot of newer bands. So I mean, sometimes you're gonna get those influences, you know, just naturally. The drumming is interesting. You know, you're getting random, you know, you're not getting double bass all the time, but you're getting nice little bursts of double bass. I really like that. It's not monotonous. It just kind of comes out of nowhere and it works perfectly. All these guys are good musicians. The second track on here has kind of a odd, short, kind of noodly, technical sounding solo, which, like I said, you get this. Fumes at their core are like a simplistic primal death metal band, but I love how they kind of have like bursts of technicality, not enough to overstay their welcome, but just to like show you, just to bring a little bit of bring some different flavors into the fold, and it works great. If I were to compare Fumes to any band, older or newer, I really don't have any comparisons, which is a good thing. Like I said, there are some Autopsy influences in it, mostly just the riffing. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Now the last band we're going to talk about, obviously is Thorn, and I'm not going to pick on them. They are it is my least favorite. It's my number 4 out of the 4 bands here, but that's not a bad thing because they're all good. It's just probably the material that caught me the least, and that's that was bound to happen. Someone had to take 4th place. And to be fair, this is a one-man project. The rest of the bands here were full bands, so I mean, kind of hard for one guy to compete with a group. So Thorn is more of I guess you'd call Thorn doom death as well, kind of like the Chasm Dweller. They're from Arizona here in the U.S. This is actually a solo project of Ben Westermeyer from the band Fluids, which are a pretty cool, like, death grindy band from kind of Mortician sounding. They had a couple releases on Maggot Stomp, and actually they've been recently signed to Hell's Headbangers, which is kind of cool. Kind of maybe they're taking their music to the next level. And he does everything here. He plays all instruments. He does vocals, which is always impressive, Oddly enough, I thought the music and everything overall sounded quite similar to Fumes. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it's because it was mixed and mastered, produced by the same people. I'm not really sure. And it's not a complaint necessarily, because I mean, they're cool tunes, all 4 of them. But I felt like there wasn't a lot of variation between Fumes and Thorn, it was kind of off-putting, but again, not a bad thing at all. Mostly mid-paced. When I say doom death, it's not like lurching funeral-paced doom or anything like that. It's more mid-paced doom death metal. There are some bursts of speed, just like Incantation and its Asphyx have always done. Both vocals are very cavernous, but they're also kind of ghastly and almost creepy sounding, and pretty cool. All these bands kind of had their own vocal style. Let's see, what other notes did I put here? I don't know why I decided to do all 3 of these. I should have just done separate reviews. I didn't think I'd be talking long enough, but next time I'll just do one at a time. That way I won't have to consult notes like this. But I put that. I mean, there are only 2 songs here between. Well, there are 2 songs each band. So the 2 Thorn songs. The first one has like a cool, has some cool like eerie sounding atmospheric lead work, which I thought was very interesting. Kind of goes with those those ghastly vocals. It's a very kind of ethereal, ghastly sounding doom death, which even despite being my 4th favorite band out of all these, I still really would like to hear more material from Thorn. Like a full length, actually, I think would be really cool. Give the music much more room to shine. All these bands, I'm going to be on the lookout for new material. I'll be paying attention as much as I can. The riffs on the Thorn side are also kind of angular sounding. That's another reason why I thought them and Fumes were kind of similar sound. They both have that kind of Autopsy angular riffing. Maybe not as much as the as Fumes, but it was still there a little bit. That Eric Cutler riffing style, I still kind of detected. All in all, the runtime here is nice and short, so you can throw it on and just listen to it, repeat it. You can give it repeated listens. It's only 4 songs. which is why I love splits, especially when it's bands I'm not familiar with. It gives me a nice introduction, without them overstaying their welcome and without me having to, invest time in listening to and buying, full-length albums. So, all these bands are definitely recommended. The label's recommended. I can't wait to hear more. Obviously, I think you knew this already, but I kind of prefer the Fume side, but I see a lot in Thorn, and I hope he doesn't get too busy with Fluids, and I hope he saves a little bit of time to make more Thorn material. So yeah, definitely a thumbs up to Ben Westermeyer. Do more Thorn, definitely, if you have the time. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got. I think my next video is going actually to be something I've been wanting to continue. I've only done 1 or 2 videos of this variety, but I'm going to do another growers video where I pick like 3 albums that initially turned me off, and I eventually became, quite a fan of. So I got a stack of 3 already kind of lined up. I think I'll just give them a couple listens, get them fresh in my mind, and I'll do that. And then after that, I don't know. We'll see what I do next. I don't really ever plan things or map things out on this channel. It's obviously it'd be probably kind of dumb. But anyways, I'm going to go. Me and Louie are going to go walk. We are off for the weekend. As soon as your weekend starts, maybe by the time you see this, I hope you have a good weekend. And thanks for stopping by. We will talk soon. Cheers.